Hi, my name is Ophir Chen from the B2B vertical team within the IPS organization. Today I'm going to talk about the conversion tool between DataStage and PowerCenter. Any migration process will have at least the three major steps. First one would be the analysis of what is it that you have, and then what is it that you want to convert your objects into, and then the actual conversion followed by the testing. The focus of this tool and this session is going to be the conversion step itself, although we'll also see how the tool can help during the analysis process. During this session, we're going to see how do DataStage and Informatica correlate, how does the tool work, why should you use the conversion tool, or what are the benefits in using it, and then what does the tool support, a short demo, then how can you leverage the tool. DataStage and PowerCenter are basically the two core products of IBM and Informatica for moving data as part of ETL processes, or more generically, in a DI processes. They both use metadata, and they have some close similarities for some of the features. For example, DataStage would use jobs, while Informatica's PowerCenter would use maps or tasks. DataStage would use the stages, while in Informatica those would be sources, transformations, or targets. If we try to explain in a high level how does the tool work, the tool works by leveraging the fact that both products are using metadata. So what do we do with that? We could export the metadata of DataStage into some textual format, which is what we call here the DStoPWC. Then using the B2B DT tool or product, we are mapping between the DataStage XML and the PowerCenter XML. Then the last step would be to import the PowerCenter XML into the PowerCenter repository, and by that we moved the objects from DataStage world to the Informatica environment. What does the tool support during the conversion? It supports the conversion of different types of jobs like server jobs, parallel, command, and so on. Status, the conversion of some functions and logic in general, the field level logic, converting the syntax from the DataStage into PowerCenter environment. And that includes also the parameters, as well as the conversion of the settings in order for the runtime to process the actual data from DataStage into the PowerCenter environment. Next slides will show from the GUI mode the starting point and the results of some very simple cases. On the top, that's the DataStage, that's the starting point. In this case, we can see that it starts as a sequential file being followed by a transformer stage and then followed by a file target. That is being converted into a source in PowerCenter, followed by an expression transformation, followed by a target. In this example, we are converting a job sequence, which is converted into a PowerCenter workflow. And in this case, it contains the equivalent for the job activity, which is the session in PowerCenter running the actual mapping that we saw earlier. And then that's followed by a command task equivalenting to the command line task or command line job from the data stage environment. Next slide shows the conversion of syntax between data stage and PowerCenter. So the first the first part shows conversion of the syntax logic. You could also see that we are preserving the original syntax within the resulting PowerCenter environment as a reference for the user, so that one could look both on the source as well as on the target at the same place, instead of potentially looking on some external document and trying to convert it manually. You can also see in the second example where we are replacing the names of the built-in variables from the data stage naming to the Informatica PowerCenter naming. In addition to the conversion itself, since the B2B data transformation product is a powerful product that can perform any-to-any transformation, we are leveraging its capabilities to also create, from the same metadata, a report reflecting the content of the data stage metadata, so that one can review and understand the level of effort that would be needed for a manual conversion. In this slide, you can see the result Excel file for the metadata of the two previous examples. And you could see that there are two lines over here representing the two different jobs, one for the server job, one for the sequential job. It also lists the different objects within the jobs, as well as giving a score, a complexity score for each one of the jobs, which in turn translates into a level of effort. Score X would give you a complexity level, which could be ranging from very simple to very complex, and that translates into man-hours, which one could aggregate to the level of effort that it would take to convert all the objects manually. Why should you use the conversion tool? Well, first of all, the obvious reasons. It's going to be faster, it's going to cost you less, it's obviously going to be more consistent, and therefore it will reduce the risk that you would have during a conversion process. Consider the following typical scenario in order to kind of make the point of guaranteed ROI. Typical conversion process of data stage can include hundreds or even thousands of jobs to be converted. Let's consider 1,000 jobs where 400 of those are going to be basic. And in that case, a reasonable amount of time that it would take to convert those manually would be 15 to 30 minutes, which translates into 100 to 200 hours. With that level of investment in the tool, you are expected to get 95 to 100% of conversion rate, and by that alone, you could justify the use of the tool. Obviously, the tool doesn't work just for simple examples, and in the more complex scenarios, depending on how much do you want to expand the tool, it would do the conversion, and based on the expansion of the tool, you would have the conversion rate. So one could expect the tool to to be converting the medium scenarios in maybe 90% of the effort, and the more complex scenarios maybe 80%, and the extremely complex scenarios maybe something lower than that. Let's take a look on a short demo of how does it work. This is the B2B DT environment where the tool was implemented in. I can take the XML of data stage, the metadata of data stage, and run it within the product. The result of that execution is this XML file. And by importing that XML file into PowerCenter, I would get in this case, a workflow corresponding to job number 2, a mapping corresponding to job number 1, as well as the sources, targets, and the transformations involved in it. This is what the mapping would look like within the PowerCenter Designer: source, transformation, and the target. And within that transformation, you could see the conversion of the syntax into the Informatica syntax while keeping the data stage original, as well as the conversion of the variables, keeping the notation of the data stage. And if we'll switch to the workflow manager, we could also see the equivalent for the second job, for the sequence job, which is a workflow executing the job activity, which makes a call to the mapping that we saw a second ago, as well as the command task corresponding to the actual command that was executed during the data stage job. Let's talk about how could you leverage the tool. The tool is currently not a product. It's a service package delivered by the B2B team within the IPS organization. In order to be able to use it, you should be engaging with the IPS team. And part of what we are going to deliver during that engagement would be expansion of the tool as needed to meet the conversion rate criteria that would be required by the customer, as well as any knowledge transfer that would be needed about how to use the tool by the customer itself. For more details, you could contact the B2B team within the IPS organization, or myself, Ophir Chen,